Thank you. I am all of those things, and a terrible Scrabble player as well. So we all have something in common. When I was thinking of what to do tonight, I decided to go with something that no one in Baltimore knows about me. So this is my one thing. So each night, across the country, children tuck themselves into bed, grabbing their stuffed monkey, their stuffed dog, their stuffed llama. When I was a child, I did the very same thing, although my constant companion of choice was a little bit different. It was the statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So this is the story of Mary and me. Part love story, part salvation, part redemption. Now, my choice of the Blessed Virgin Mary may have seemed an odd one for many 6-year-olds, but for me it made perfect sense. I grew up in a very devout Irish Catholic family, and conversations about hell, who was going there, and how we could avoid it were constant dinner table fodder. So the choice of Mary was one based on fear of perpetual damnation. And this was exacerbated when my family, wanting some wholesome family time together, decided we would take in a movie. This was in the 70s when decisions were a little more lax about what was and wasn't appropriate for children, and they decided to take in a rebroadcast, I think it was at a drive-in, of a wholesome family film called The Exorcist. I was 6. Returning from The Exorcist that night, I was terrified. I ran to my bedroom and I immediately grabbed my Ouija board, which I loved more than anything, and threw it in the trash. And then I immediately started scouting around for something to take the place of the Ouija board. I went into my grandmother's bedroom and there she was, Mary. 8 inches, blue robes, white gown, long flowing brown hair, a beatific smile, and opening arms welcoming me, waiting for me. So I took Mary into my room, and from that night forward began to sleep with her instead of a stuffed animal. Her head would be wedged up against my chin, my grubby hand was clutching onto her body. And for my family, this was fabulous. My mother and grandmother had a long sense of a Marian devotion. In fact, my family, as many Catholics did, just dismissed God summarily. Basically, I was always told you should just go straight to Mary, forget the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. She's a woman, she's gentle, she'll understand. So they were very excited about this turn of events, and as a result, as they realized my sort of Marian devotion, I got new and different gifts bestowed upon me to support this. The first was some glow-in-the-dark rosary beads, which I also started wearing to bed every night, along with the statue. And I'd light them up as I read, and then they would glow when I went to bed. And then soon thereafter, I got Our Lady of Fatima music box and statue, which sat by my bedside table. I would see Mary reach up under her skirts, turn the key, and yes, I know there's a lot to take in with that image, but it played a very tinny version of Ave Maria, and that is how I would go to sleep every night. And I was pretty sure between the statue, the rosary beads, and the Ave Maria with the Lady of Fatima that there was sort of no room for Satan or the devil at that point in my life. And now this devotion continued. Like when I was in 3rd grade, my relationship to Mary strengthened because I was selected, of course, to be Mary in the Christmas pageant. And in fact, my family took me to Middleman's Tailors to have my outfit designed. It was a white robe and blue kind of gown, blue cape sort of thing. And I don't remember much about the play. I remember that there was a John, either John Gromowski or John Kolchak, who played Joseph. Not sure which one, but it was some blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy playing Joseph from some Eastern European country. So it was a rousing success, and I actually got invited to play Mary again in 4th grade because I was so good. And I think in part because I'm also part Jewish, and I probably looked the part more than anybody else in the school. But in 4th grade, I played Mary as well. And then this sort of culminated for me for a while in 8th grade when I was selected to be the May Queen, which if you went to a Catholic school, you know this is a very, very big deal. I kind of beat out my best friend and arch nemesis Mary Valdivia to win May Queen, which meant I got to wear a special dress, I got to carry flowers, and put a crown of flowers on the Blessed Virgin Mary, or the BVM's head. And this was a very big deal. And in fact, it's also known as solstice or May Day in any other culture or religion around the world. But so, I guess I went to high school and didn't really pay much attention to Mary for a while. I was more focused on boys, poetry, social justice, and punk rock. Not exactly in that order, but suffice to say, did lots of other things. Mary wasn't really on the radar. And when I went to college, I wasn't really religious, but it did come back to me in a lot of different ways. In part through some women's studies classes and also art. So when I was in college, I took a lot of liberal arts courses, took a lot of women's studies classes, and began to realize there are lots of goddesses. There are lots of women that are being worshipped. My family wasn't that far off, and sort of the pantheon of Catholic saints that exists allows people to worship lots of female kind of deities. So I found, that was very interesting. It made a lot of sense with the way I was raised and what my grandmother and aunt had told me. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of art and became very interested in how Mary was depicted in art, because it seemed to me that a lot of the artwork you see, the way Mary is depicted physically, and the kind of characteristics and traits that are emphasized say a lot about what that society thinks about women, both as an ideal figure or the kind of traits they want to emphasize at that time. So, you would see Mary being blonde-haired and blue-eyed and fair-skinned, or olive-complected, or brown-skinned, or dark-skinned. Sometimes you would see her being very sad, sorrowful, with her face planed with pain. Other times, especially in Mediterranean culture, she's literally like bursting out of her dress to feed the Christ child. Breast jutting out, the Christ child hungrily suckling. And so I think it felt a lot about what that society felt were important traits for women to assume or to project. And this came back to me a couple weeks ago because I was in New York City. I was with my son. We were at a Cindy Sherman retrospective. And there's a whole section of Cindy Sherman's work where she's basically emulating traditional iconography. And, forever I've loved kind of Catholic iconography, even though I'm not religious now, sort of the depictions of, pageantry, the colors, the kind of depictions of suffering of martyrs, all of it. And so Cindy Sherman's portraits, you have her, Cindy as Mary, like cupping her left hand as it juts out and holding the Christ child on her right hand. Or you have Cindy waiting and looking very demure as Mary, as the good news is bestowed upon her. The good news being that she will never have sex. And looking very happy about that. And you have these other depictions of Cindy as Mary. And as we were leaving the exhibit, we went out to the portrait gallery. We went outside to the sculpture garden at MoMA, and they have a number of statues in the middle of the garden. And two of them were a yellow and black wax statue of Mary. So I feel like in art and the way you see her, it's something that I've carried with me as well. And I just want to say two more things about Mary. One is something that's stuck with me since I've become a mother, is La Pieta. And as everyone I think knows, it's been depicted a million times, but it's Mary holding Christ as he's taken off the cross and holding the body of her son in her arms. Now, I have a son who's 9, and he is not past cuddling, but he is far past carrying. But a few years ago, he wasn't. And he would fall asleep downstairs, and I would pick him up and carry him upstairs. His limp head would fall against my breast. His arms would be dangling. His legs were almost too long to carry up my narrow stairway, and they would drag against the wall. And as I see that portraiture now and that kind of iconic description, I just keep thinking back to how I would feel and how mothers must feel, how every mother must feel, cradling the body of your dead child in your arms and what that really means. And it has so much resonance for me now, thinking of her just cradling that body that she carried for so long in so many different ways. But that's not the image of that I usually think of. I don't usually think of Mary as La Pieta. I think of her as Mary of the compassionate smile, Mary of the outstretched arms, Mary welcoming the wretched, the Kuan Yin. And in fact, last January, I was back home with my mother, and I was helping her unpack because she'd moved from a farmhouse in Peculiar, Missouri, this is true, to a ranch house in Kansas City, Missouri. And I was unpacking the box that was marked for my room, which I'll stay in once a year, I guess. And who was there as I pull, who do I pull out? But I pull out Mary. She's still there, 8 inches, her robes are worn, her hair is a little discolored, but her smile was wide and her arms were outstretched, just like they'd always been.